Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Tyoxin, and this is the Witchy podcast, where we talk about all things witchy and many things not so witchy. With me today is Sarah Price. Thank you for hanging out with me today.
I'm super excited.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking.
Yes, absolutely. Sarah, what do you do?
Oh, I'm a coach. I sometimes call myself a consciousness coach. I fall in and out of love with the word coach all the time, but I work one-to-one with people and teams, helping them tap into authenticity, sense of self, self-awareness, healthy leadership, etc.
You weren't always a coach.
My background was marketing, so I feel like and part of what I do as a coach is oftentimes helping people step into new business ideas. Mm-hmm. So like as a career marketer, I've got a lot of content that says like, oh, I'm capable and available to help you like turn your ideas into brands.
From the beginning of the pandemic to now, what are some of the changes that you've made in your own business?
Oh, wow. Well, in the very beginning of the pandemic, I started offering free coaching to anyone who offered that they needed it. Like anyone who was willing to sign up for what I called a penny dish session had free time with me. And that was like a give a penny, take a penny. In the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, like doors are closed. What are we supposed to do now? I felt like this inkling of being one of the people that folks were looking to go like, how are we supposed to, especially as a service provider, as someone who saw clients in person. Just before the pandemic started, I built out this gorgeous office space here in Atlanta and was working in person with like 90% of my client base. And my colleagues in that space were 3 amazing psychotherapists. And so I was getting referrals from those channels. And then as soon as it shut down, I thought, okay, so I'm 100% remote now. What does that look like? As one of those people that was trying to like help folks know what to do, I said early on, I think we're done seeing people in person. And folks around me were like, yeah, I think maybe, so I tried to be that voice, offered my free services. And then through that process and a couple of other in the weeds stories, really got empowered to now I see 100% of my client base online and it's global. Like I was so focused on building this hyper-local thing and really expanding that. And now was forced, like many of us, to think about it differently. So that's one big one. I went from being almost 100% in person to entirely remote and thinking about work as like a global opportunity.
Now, your coaching practice, there is an element of intuitiveness, or a heavy element, I'd almost say, of intuitiveness and not being so stuck in this academic intellectual mindset where we can be when we think about like, what am I supposed to do?
Totally. I think the words I've gotten most used to using are consciousness. That's like a baby step into more spiritual approach to, healthy work and life. Consciousness, authenticity, to me, like those are super witchy things, but they're also like very, very safe.
Right.
But depending on who I'm talking to and kind of like reading the room, I'll also say, I don't know how much you know about me, but I channel and I'm getting information. And so a lot of these sessions will just be like entirely intuitively driven. If we're going to have an agenda and Spirit may take us somewhere else, or I'll say in the middle of a conversation, okay, Spirit affirms that whatever you're saying is, really whatever, because sometimes it just comes over me so strong I can't say it out loud. What does that look
like? So I'll be talking about my plan or what I want for maybe the future and what I'm not getting, and then you say, or how does Spirit like?
All right. So one of my superpowers, when I think have become so comfortable with everything. All of the special, unique like gifts that I have that I don't actually think about it as witchy anymore. Okay. So I'm happy to be here in this space that's called Witchy Anything. And also like, I can't wait until it's just like so freaking normal that all of this is like the way we operate. But one of my superpowers, one of my witchier qualities is that I feel a difference. I feel the weight of truth versus like untruth. Okay. So as a coach, if I'm talking to someone who's basically bullshitting me and themselves at the same time, I can, there's a lot of people are like, oh, that you're lying to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I can hear someone who fully believes a narrative and tell them whether or not it's true. And so I'm very thoughtful about that. I'm not like, walking around, dismissing people and what they believe to be true.
Kind candor, sort of.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of why people come to me. It's like, it is, we'll just sidebar for 20 seconds to say that the wellness industry, practitioners and people who are pushing not just mental wellness, but like whole body wellness, and the idea of like workplace culture is super toxic in and of itself. It feels full of manipulation, a lot of like, here's the right way and the wrong way. And I am just trying to be a voice that says like, I will meet you wherever you are. And we're going to do this authentic thing that says, your experience is going to inform what we do here. I think everyone is basically their best teacher, and I'm just like a guide along the way. So part of what I do is kind of dismantling the industry that I'm in. I'm kind of having my own like reckoning with that right now. And I think most people are really, they're very receptive to the idea that what they're saying might not be true, even if it's hard to hear because they believe it so deeply.
Are they ever surprised that that is the case? Where it's like, no, wait, as far as I know, they're operating at that level in their head, but there's that deeper level that they are not connected with. So are they surprised? Are they surprised?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
how does that come out?
This work, I just feel like so fucking lucky that I get to, most days when I'm working with clients, 2 to 5 clients a day, I get to go upstairs. I work in my home basement and say, I just changed 3 lives. Like categorically know that like people are having realizations and coming to their own truths in ways that are like rocking their worlds. So you layer this like ability to feel the difference between truth and not, and you add in I have this really uncanny ability to connect dots for people. For a long time as a marketer, I thought I'm going to have a brand one day that has something to do with like connecting the dots. Like that's the brand. And I realized ultimately that's just like my magic. That's just one of the things I do. I'm a connector of people. Like professionally, I can connect folks who should know one another. And ultimately I'm connecting truths within a single person that they've never connected.
Now, this sort of transition you made, was it all easy? Even on the base level of going from physical to 100% virtual?
No.
What was hard about it? I mean, it sounds easy at this point. I mean, because you have it. It looks like running really well.
Well, first of all, I just think that providers, anyone adding any value in the world at all, has to be like super real and honest about their own struggles. If my life was easy, I almost feel like I'd have no place to teach from. Like I have to be a constant student, especially for someone who's like teaching authenticity. Who the fuck am I to teach authenticity, really? So the very best I can do is just be like super present in all of the like themes and hardships and lessons that show up for me. Like that is my lens through which I teach. So, I mean, I also subscribe to this version of like, of course it's easy. I follow the ease. I create ease. This work is easy for me. I sit down and I change lives. That's all I do. And that is true. But the big picture, like how could I be a human being in the world who just experienced this global, once in a generation or multi-generation kind of hardship and not admit that like how would it... I spent, thousands of dollars building out a space that I could work in physically. I appointed it to my likeness and it oozed me.
You definitely did that.
And then I had to shut it down, right? And you want to talk about like trying to connect dots as someone who does that, like inherently, the like spiraling of like, what does it mean? Like not just like centering myself in a global pandemic, but that's what we're all doing anyway. Yeah. So I centered myself and like was despairing over like, why would I have done that? Why would I need to build that if this was just going to happen? And what is the point of that? And I'm all about the lesson, right? And still I resist them every chance I get. Right. So that was not easy. Breaking up with that space and the people in it, not easy. Even just our relationship to like enjoying working together. I was really loving that. And then it was like bloop gone. One of the first things that happened in like April of 2020 was I was supposed to speak at a like in-person convention here. Design brand. I'll hit you with that later.
Those words are in there.
sponsored by a local agency called Ampersand. I was supposed to be a speaker at this event, and it was going to be rooftop, cool hotel here. And all of a sudden, they reached out and were like, "I think we have to shut it down, but we're going digital." And I was like, "No, not me. I'm not going to go digital. I totally appreciate that." And she was like, "That's so weird. Every other person involved was excited." And I was like, "Ugh, like, what?" Really, the lesson here, right? I'm the different, like, everyone was excited about going digital except for me. And it highlighted so many things about my work that I wasn't comfortable, a certain kind of content creation, and the idea of digitally speaking to a room full of people. I thought, oh, well, I feed off energy. I'm not going to be able to like meet that group and add value. And that's enough of that story for now, but it has categorically, that experience changed how I've worked and like who I am as a person.
I think that one of the things about that transition is realizing, and there's a whole bunch of thoughts probably, just the level of communication, the type of communication, and being able to communicate in these different forms. And if you look at just social media, like whether you can communicate in Facebook or a different platform like Instagram, and even the different sort of modes within Instagram, and then communicating in TikTok is completely different, right? So being able to bridge those things, and that's why any of these technologies, as much as we rail against them, is why they continue to succeed and expand, is because they expand communication among people. And so any of the mediums that can continue to do that and do it well are the ones that succeed, is if they can keep communication growing and growing and growing. And that's why at some point, I mean, it's down the line as far as virtual worlds and the goggles and everything, because there are people that can communicate with each other in that way, and it'll only grow its ability to connect us. And that's the piece where and people rail about I'll never be in VR, right, as far as the goggles, but we're already communicating as much as we can with our phone 6 inches away from our face.
Right.
The VR is just right there.
How long until we're...
I mean, and it's that communication piece that we forget about. So, and making that transition has been very difficult for me, but then at the same time, not, or once you get there, you start thriving and figuring it out.
Because our alternatives are like removed, limited,
right.
Changing. I think you're right. I think as long as there's expansiveness in the narrowing, people are going to receive it and work with it and say like, okay, does this give me a new set of tools to communicate my X, Y, or Z,
well,
whether
it's the same
personal.
As looking at opportunities versus only challenges or whatever.
Yep, I like that. Yes.
It's like, oh no, this is a whole opportunity of doing everything digital and figuring it out and how to do it differently, and even my own growth, because obviously there are holes in my communication style and everything else.
Sure.
Sort of like in acting, where some actors, they really need props to ground them, but what do you do when you have no props? So how do you communicate when you can't see the rest of the person's body, and it's just your message, or your tools are limited.
I like you saying that lens of like challenges versus opportunities. That's like an age old, especially in marketing and like you got to problem solve agency world, that reminded me of, I've already shared with you a little bit about how I'm a little disgruntled with social media. It's like a hard mountain to climb straight up right now.
Yes.
A lot of like changes in the algorithms and whatnot. And it's feeling like super tedious and a little thankless. So I'm in this like negative space about social media right now, but I've got this friend who is only a voyeur, like doesn't produce any content and has no reason to at all right now anyway. And she said to me once, like, how can you not like Instagram? Like, even as someone who doesn't participate, it's like free marketing. You get to say whatever you want and sell whatever you want with very few rules. And as grounded as I feel in my truths about how hard social media is, she was freaking right. Like, it is a tool that we get to sell and say basically whatever we want with a little bit of censorship, and people might buy from us. I mean, that's unprecedented. There's not been a tool that helps people do that before now. So, I mean, I get it. Like, it's a wonderful thing.
But we forget that too. Even if we get it, we still forget it.
Yes, it is a good reminder. It's like, oh yeah, what gratitude do I have for all of this like opportunity? And also I think probably as someone not only trying to grow my own business, but helping other people grow ideas, the idea that I'm even going to like help you build a website and organize your thoughts and like turn it into something that's truly monetizable. And now I'm going to tell you that all you got to do is shuck it on Instagram all day, every day. That feels terrible.
Is it? Is there any amount of social pressure or your own judgment that's like it's not good enough, or it's what I'm producing just isn't good enough? It's not enough reach. You're judging it by that metric.
Well, I'm interpreting that question as like you're asking me about my own business. Is that reasonable?
We'll
Okay. So in my own business, it boils down to revenue. I teach this kind of business positioning and I live this. I really celebrate being in the business of throwing spaghetti. That's what I call it. Like I'm just gonna, especially because I talk about following the ease. What is ease? It's not always easy, but like be in the business of throwing spaghetti, see what sticks. You're going to learn from that. You're going to iterate. You're going to create a new dish every time, whatever. Carry the metaphor as far as you'd like. I'm constantly doing that with my business. And I lost my train of thought. The throwing spaghetti is really relevant, but I was going to talk about, what did you ask me about? Talking about revenue.
I started with your own judgments of yourself or the social pressure around likes or anything, or just even interaction.
Well, for now, I'm just going to go where the train took me. The idea that I'm throwing spaghetti and realizing some parts of my business that work and some parts that don't. Part of it is like, it kind of doesn't matter what my hourly rate gets to. It started at like $80 an hour for coaching. Even, I've been charging $150 an hour for marketing for years, but $80 an hour for coaching. And then now, depending on how you engage with my services, it's between like $130 and $225 an hour. So on the one hand, you're like, holy shit, that's expensive, or that's amazing, or whatever. And still like, I'm not trying to pay for our life $100 at a time, or even $200 at a time. It's a lot of work and it's like really uphill. So I think the frustration comes from having to always be piecing it together, because ultimately I'm still an entrepreneur. I work for myself, single income household. It's on me. And what does that look like? I think that's where my own personal pressure comes from. So my human inclination is to be constantly tweaking that, throwing spaghetti, trying to uncover like, what am I missing? Plus also I'm having this experience, this like spiritual experience 100% of the time that says, listen to the lessons.
Is your social media post created some degree solving that problem solving, like what will work, and is there any degree of this is your message, what you want to say, or what percentage of each of those, or is like, because you can easily be like, let me try to figure out what is going to work, let me,
that doesn't feel authentic,
continue to just put out more and more of what I want to put out and create and say.
I think both of those things work. I am probably attracting different clients when I'm leaning into those different parts of myself. And I go back and forth. I really do practice following the ease. So sometimes it feels super easy to create and batch reels. And then I get to post those. And so I'm doing this sort of, song and dance of creative content. And that feels very much like I'm playing the game the way I'm supposed to play it. And then other times I go through these seasons where I'm like, I'm only going to post intuitively. If I get a spark of genius, I used to describe it as like, the person that walks around with the field notes in their back pocket. Oh, I love that friend of mine from college that always had the field notes and just jotted down whatever genius dropped in. Like, I can do that in my phone, but a lot of times as someone who's trying to be a teacher, and I say that like I'm brilliant at what I do, and also I'm always just trying to be better. So I'm trying to be this teacher. That is an approach that's worked for me too. I'll just intuitively spirit strikes or knowledge drops in, and it's like, that's what the people need to know right now. So I've done it really, really intuitively. I've done it really businessy. I've paid for ads. I think part of the exhaustion is that you come at it all these different ways and it still feels like you're climbing straight up the side of the mountain.
What would not climbing straight up the side of the mountain look like?
Well, in that metaphor, the opposite is gradual inclines around to get to the top of the mountain. So I think you could argue that like that's what we're doing too. It is we're climbing a mountain. Maybe it just doesn't. Why does it have to feel like climbing a mountain?
Well, I don't know. Why does it feel like that to you?
Well, the reason now I really appreciate this moment of like personal therapy for me. The reason it feels like that to me is because I'm not hitting my revenue goals.
Okay. So
So
it's tied to that.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And then here again, I'm a person who's helping people step into their own ability to work for themselves. And I'm like, buckle up, buttercup. It's not easy. And
is there a level of like I'm not doing it?
no, not really.
Okay.
Not really, because I feel like I am doing it and it is
Okay.
working.
Okay. So you're doing it and it is working.
I'm not where I want to be though,
Okay.
right? So there's still, and that's just like the whole behind the
Right.
curtains truth, you
Yeah,
know, which I'm happy to share. And that feels like part of that is my own lessons, you know. I can go to a place of like be here now, live in the moment, you know, things always work out.
I think for me, I'm very early on the like. You produce content consistently for a while, years, right? At kind of a high level of output. I'm very early on that. Okay, as far as ramping up my level of output, I've so for me, I don't have that same pressure yet, but I have focused on, or recently, it's really been, okay, what am I not posting what did I not post? Because I was afraid that it was not going to get enough likes. All right, so that stops many people. That's largely also carryover from the curated grid.
Sure.
Right.
Yes,
'Cause
absolutely.
it has to look perfect. 'Cause it's going to sit there forever. Okay, and even I did that up until like maybe 3 weeks ago. Okay, and that was my strategy. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. Then there's another like whole idea of like, wait, all these posts I could possibly be doing because I'm afraid that it's going to be low ranking or whatever. Hardly anyone's going to like it, and that's the measure of like it was a good post or not. But in the end, I wanted to post that, right? So all
Gotta
these
do it.
things that I made or I can make that I'm not posting for that reason, which is a dumb reason. Going back to like many things where it's like if I'm afraid of it, if I'm afraid of doing something because of what I think other people are going to think, or what other people are going to think, then that is the dumbest reason not to do a thing.
Totally.
Right? So same thing
agree
with
with
social
that.
media.
Yep.
So now I post, and also for me, it's also like, well, it used to be, I've got to save these posts. That's a good idea. I've got to save them. I can't post too many at once, right? So, but now it's like, wait, what if I'm not afraid of running out of ideas?
Well, that's a beautiful like sub lesson. I
You know?
appreciate that.
So,
Yep.
well, no, because and it's one of those things where, and that is always a fear, you know, like, and it's
Oh, come on, not for you.
that's a fear.
Not for me
everybody.
either. No, I'm not afraid of running
Well,
out of great ideas.
It's somewhere in the background.
Okay.
It's like it can creep up on you. Like I gotta save this for the right, not even the right time. Just I gotta save this because I don't know what's coming next or whatever. But it's like, so now it's just like, okay, if I want to post it today, and social media moves so fast, especially with TikTok culture, that like you cannot really provide enough content. You can't overwhelm anybody.
Right.
And not everybody sees all of your posts. So if I post 3 or 4 times a day, it's not going to be the same 50 people, right? So
Yeah, they'll turn the valve off. Like
Right,
Instagram
yes.
will turn the valve off if you're
Exactly.
overproducing.
So there's no like overwhelming people with too many posts.
Right.
So that removes that worry. So it's really just me being like, I want to post these things and not being afraid that I'm going to run out of ideas.
Yeah.
You know, which if you change it and be like, that's pretty freeing. Like I can just keep making and making. And one, not everybody's going to see it. So I don't have to worry that everybody's going
Right.
to hate it.
Right.
And 2, it serves a purpose because not everybody's going to see it. So if I can do it, and obviously everything is how you do it. So if you can remove your own judgment on yourself, especially, and not think about what other people are going to care about and things like that, then you can be freer and freer to just make.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it really is true. A lot of times I tell clients that any engagement with your audience is like a high five in the hallway. Do you think that like went that last time we high-fived, I was like, weird, Mark's hands seem larger than I thought, and there's a little clammy. I mean, like, no one's judging that high five, right? They're certainly not, like, defining you by it. So all we're doing is just a high five in the hallway here and there.
99% of the time, nobody feels bad after a high five.
That's right.
Like,
it's like, hey, thanks for being there.
Like almost never have I felt bad after a high five.
I love it. So if you think about, I love that approach. That's how I coach myself through it too. It's a high five in the hallway, and you're absolutely right. There's two, like I said, the machine will temper you if you're overproducing, so they won't serve that content up to your audience anyway. We should assume that like 12 to 20% of our audience sees everything, so that's a pretty low number, and we should overproduce for that reason. I think, I mean, you're right, certainly, in your assessment that I've just been doing this for a minute and it's, I'm just a little worn out by it. But doesn't it all sound kind of like burdensome? Like everything we're talking about feels like it's a game and it's I gotta get it. I gotta figure it out. I gotta get it right. Oh, and it changed. So it's like this game that's constantly changing. It feels very hard to keep up with.
That's true.
And so here I'm gonna like flip the script because we could talk about that forever. But like, and I don't mean to like diss on the platforms because we're all out here just trying to do it. That's why I agreed to do this because it's gonna give me some fucking content, right?
Right.
Well, and I care about you and your ideas and I want to support you, but I want to support me,
Yes.
So. But how much, let's boil it down to revenue, how much brand awareness, maybe we can lump that into, for y'all is coming from Instagram. And you may be like, all of it, like a lot of it. We have made a shit ton of money because we're doing it. We're figuring it out. We're talking about it regularly. And you may or may not have a number in mind for that, but like down the line, maybe if I had to answer that question for myself, it just doesn't feel like it carries enough weight.
The math is always different for everybody, right? And the calculations. So for me, further down the line, say Coke is not going to buy my kombucha company because it tastes the best or I can make a ton of it. They're going to buy my kombucha company from me because of the brand. So everything I'm doing...
And the saturation, you're right.
Right, everything I'm doing is to build up the brand and what people know about it, because as much as I like to think like my kombucha recipes are the best ever and no one can recreate them.
It's delicious.
They can recreate them, they can figure it out. There are way smarter people than me.
Something in this special witchy sauce.
Well, that's the witchy, that's the crystal elixirs.
There you go.
So, but even then, there's a level of recreation that they can do. But yeah, so for me, in that aspect, my math is different, right, from other people, from yours. Whereas, like, I'm trying to build my brand, and it is largely built. The brand is built through Instagram and the other platforms that I'm trying to do. Yep. So I'm building the brand, knowing that like my sales are not directly through Instagram.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, every now and then I do get people to go to the website, but even then, largely it is from the stores. So I want you to remember when you go to the store, or whatever, connect in that way. Yep. So, but Instagram is to build that sort of brand awareness and everything else, and that works for me. So, yes. So since that works for my math, I think it's great.
Right.
Obviously, because how else am I going to build brand for free?
Like my friend said, that is the tool that we've been given, and it really is like an awesome free tool.
But at the same time, it's different levels of like what percentage of the marketing is it, and so figuring that out is always the tricky thing. Why you hire smart people,
right? Totally.
I can't figure stuff like that out.
Yeah. I kind of knew that our conversation would go here a bit because it's just too top of mind for me. Like I can't pretend that like my business exists without Instagram and other social platforms.
Do you think it does exist largely because of Instagram? Like that's where...
No, certainly not. I really think my brand exists because of me. I think...
Okay, yes.
Well, sure. I mean, I guess that's sort of like a given, but also...
but you've done
my
the work to make
reputation,
connections.
my client base, like is a beautiful function of marketing for me. But I also kind of feel like the work that I'm doing is a little bit obscure for like a single individual to go like, oh, I recognize that I need a coach. Someone's told me it's valuable. It's different than psychotherapy. I wish I could find someone that is like able to help me with personal stuff and professional stuff. I just think in a lot of ways I'm a generalist on purpose. I really want to be able to help like all kinds of people. I'm curious about all kinds of people. I'm inspired. I'm learning from all kinds of people. So like the idea, but here the coach's playbook says, well, you got to niche down.
Yeah.
You need to be the lesbian entrepreneur with a marketing background helping coaches, raise their what, right? Like that's what people are telling us we have to be doing in this coaching sphere. And I think I'm like revolting against that. I hate it. I don't want to be told that I can't succeed unless I niche down. And I am certain that is where some of my burnout is coming from.
Oh, okay.
Because, like you said, it's different. I think everything you just said is valid. And you're right about brand awareness. And it's going to serve you really, really well. I'm not looking to be acquired by anyone, you know, unless it's that like headhunting, poaching kind of like, you've got to come be our like, VP of people. And even then, I play with those ideas all the time. And I think, I don't want to be part of a machine. I don't want to do that.
Are you speaking? Doing speaking?
No, not a lot right now. I have done that in the past. I did my first couple of years of coaching, I thought I'm going to work for teams and I'm going to travel and I'm going to do like event speaking, annual sales conference, annual, whatever retreats. And I did some of that long enough to know that I don't actually enjoy it. I don't enjoy the like traveling different cities without my family speaking to a cold audience over and over and over again. I think we'll go a little witchy here into like some astrology, which you like unequivocally will even know more about than I do because I know almost nothing. And Leah is like so much of that resource for me. My North Node is in Leo. And with the limited awareness I have about what a North Node means, to me, that is sort of like the culmination of this lifetime experience for me says that I will be Leo in that like ultimate iteration of myself. To me, Leo is, I am on stage, I am comfortable, I am like, da-da-da, put me up here, put me in, coach, I'm like ready, right? That is not me today.
Okay.
That has never been me.
Okay.
I'm raising a Leo. I am not that, And there are some very like dumbed down, me dumbing down my perception of all of those things in this definition. And feel free to correct me. But North Node in Leo for me says, when I finally learn my lessons and I figure out some of what I'm here to do, that will make a lot more sense than it does right now. So with that in mind, I will just offer that it's probably for me that I am on stage somewhere. My personal quest right now for my business is, I keep telling people what I'm doing is great. My genius is genius and it's serving a lot of people. It's serving everyone that it, touches one-to-one certainly. But I need a bigger stage. So I'm playing with that language. Right. I have this concept in my mind that there is lesson coming and that thread pulls through, right? So
what's your program?
The Authentic Ocean.
Yes. Authentic Ocean. Right. Is that a step in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick, describe the Authentic Ocean.
Okay, so remember the event that I told you I had to speak at in the beginning of the pandemic, and I had to pivot and go totally digital. I was freaking out about that and sat down and said I always draw on the iPad. It's sort of like self-care, creative outlet. And I said, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to start drawing something, and I'm going to get some answers from this exercise. And I started outlining I ultimately wanted to teach people how to heal themselves. That was what my talk was going to ultimately be about. And that's an education or curriculum that I'd never actually taught. So I had some fun ideas, and I've always had exercises. I've got a one-sheeter. I've got this printout. But I sat down to map out what I was going to talk about in this conversation, and then the map became the conversation. So the Authentic Ocean is based on a visual, illustrated roadmap to and through authenticity. It starts with limiting beliefs, and it ends with the coast of the Authentic Ocean. That's the simplest way to describe it.
Okay.
And it now it's up here right in front of you.
Oh, okay.
That map is now a true like a treasure map that I look at. I look at that almost all day, like as I'm working with other clients and in my own limiting beliefs, and I think, where am I on that map right now? And somehow, and it was 1,000,000,000% channeled. All of that information just flowed through me. I'd draw something for an hour, I'd step back and go, holy shit, oh my God, oh wow, I've never thought about that before. And then I'd do more. And then like over the course of a couple of days, I created this whole thing and I was able to like go to a talk about it. I set it aside for 6 months thinking like, well, that was really wonderful that I was able to generate some content for that fucking talk I had to do, right? Like that's how much I was like avoiding the whole experience. And I created this map out of it and like, whoo, pat on the back. That was like a win.
Done.
And people liked it, you know? But then 6 months later, it's waking me up in the middle of the night, my dreaming saying, hey, you need to go back to that content.
On the shoulder.
Yep. So I pulled it back out and I started looking at it again. And I said, well, it can't be a bigger curriculum unless it's compartmentalized because it needs to be consumable. Mm-hmm. So, and I have a thing about odd numbers. Everything's got to be odd. So is it 3 sections or 5 sections? I don't know. And I started drawing lines and I drew, I'll show you because we're sitting here, this line around the map. And I was like, well, these 3 would go together. Those 4 things go together. And then I started thinking like, well, that's weird. Like I didn't set out to create a 5-part anything, but here we are where this like 5 sections of the map like reveals this illustration. So all of these sections work together. And so more than anything, it has been like a treat for me to like uncover this content, organize this content. I teach it every single day with my clients now. I have one 3-month program where I teach it top to bottom, but like everyone who works with me gets some peppering of it because it's just like what I live, breathe, eat.
It's the core.
It's how I live. Yeah. The 5 sections are awareness, access, allowance, action, and authenticity. And so the 5 A's. That felt important at the time. Mm-hmm. And now, you know, looking at this printed collateral, there are these 5 sections of content. There's a Train the Trainers workbook, 50 pages. There's 24 exercises that I link up for clients digitally and send out these packets all the time. I mean, without question, without fail, I can like sit down with someone and say, what's the thing weighing heaviest on you right now? They'll tell me and I'll say, I've got a thing for that.
Does this scale for organizations?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's excellent.
It is excellent. I need a bigger stage. And I'm just a little too tired of the song and dance to like be doing it for myself right now.
I mean, Helene's taking a sabbatical.
Mm-hmm. I think there is as much value in the rest as there is in the production. So that's where I am right now.
That's excellent.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
I mean,
it feels like torture.
What? I get that too. Mm-hmm. But you realize, I mean, when you go, you realize, I have a problem with like not going. Mm-hmm. Right, you know, and I had that, and then my body gave up on me. Like my body was like, it stopped for me. You know, like since I wasn't gonna intellectually just make the decision, it was like I think it just completely shut down.
Yeah.
And got sick, and knowing or accepting that things work like that is like, okay, I'm gonna really accept this break that I had. You know, but yeah, no, absolutely, I get that whole. The resistance to finding the break, especially while you have ongoing work at the same time.
Totally.
You know?
And work of different varieties too still sometimes. I describe this, and this is some words that were given to me through one of my mentors, but describe this sort of as like the creation of the authentic ocean, at least in its current state, was like climbing another mountain. Mm-hmm. But it was like me and my superpower. Content creation, putting ideas together, channeling from spirit. All of that stuff informed and inspired me over the course of 2020. Like, and I guess, so it was about a year. So like April to April, 20 to 21. And all these different versions, too long of a story to tell, where ultimately like we got here. There's some printed collateral. I can sell it as a program. I'm, you know, working with it every day. And it was me in my zone of genius that like undeniably. And then once I climbed the mountain and was looking out over the vista, and I'm sharing this only because I really like, I feel like it will help someone else. You climb that mountain with you and your genius, you're looking out over the thing going, holy shit, look at everything I just did. And look at all I can see from up here. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, what next? I mean, like in that actual metaphor, it's time to go back down.
Right.
And in this experience, what is the version? I don't want to go back down. I want it now. Like, so now I need to project it to the heavens, and it needs to be on that bigger stage. And I think, so that's the last that's the last like 8 months of my like professional experience. This is me sharing like my hardships have been in that like, oh wow, I made it. I did it. I'm here. Wait, what next? And then you start like spiraling in other ways. Do I need a like publisher? Do I need some sort of like editorial agent? Am I writing a book? I actually don't know. And I'll repeat this because I just told a client this morning. Even like all the right things sometimes get put on the back burner. And it's really important for us to recognize that they're like still on the fucking stove in our freaking house with the things that we, hold dear. It still belongs to us. And it's also really painful sometimes when you're like, but why is it backburnered? So I'm in a season of like sort of having backburnered some of the stuff that I believe in the most.
There is always that point where you realize, you could or you are pushing, and forcing, knowing that like, okay, maybe if I ease up a bit, like it gives that space for opportunity and your own rest and everything else.
Sure.
Why would I sign up for this program?
When I'm talking to potential clients about my 3-month program, so that's the only tool where I teach it top to bottom, I say that program starts with goal setting, which is integral to you like having some measure of success and then like reaching it. We're going to start with goals, and I want you to think about those goals, not like, a month from now I want to have like created my website and, there's just some tangible things. I've got another program for that. This is about intangible goals. Like there is dis-ease in my life that I want to heal. I want to uncover some of these patterns that don't serve me and throw them out. I want a new set of tools and a new language for how to operate in the world. I think a lot of times the folks who are signing up for this now are the folks hearing myself say that. I'm like, yeah, these folks are in crisis. They are like at that moment in their life where they're like, this cannot be all there is. And it's actually really interesting to hear me say that out loud because I'm like, oh, but that's not all this is for. But it is absolutely that, maybe first and foremost. My own personal like reawakening really was culminating like 7 years ago, like in the throes of infertility and wanting something so fucking bad that I couldn't have, and like a bunch of sadness, no other way around it. And so that was my like, this can't be it moment. And I think I find a lot of people in those moments of their lives who don't have this roadmap to like, oh, let me help you find yourself. Let me help you heal yourself. What is that? It's the self-help section at the library. Right. It's, this is a tangible curriculum that helps folks uncover the truth of who they actually are, begin to believe it, ultimately lean in and start living that way, and an ongoing methodology to keep yourself in check. So I actually define authenticity as a destination marked by the inability of ever arriving. It's not like something you can be. You can't be authentic. I mean, yeah, in a day-to-day sense, we can be authentic. We can be more authentic than not. But like, who among us, who do we know? In all of our witchy, community grandeur, who do we know that's like, that is the person?
They are the truest form of authenticity.
I mean, that's spirit. That is,
right.
That's the only version.
Everything else is instances where we have opportunities to do the thing, but not be.
Exactly. So that's what I'm doing here. And honestly, that's what they're doing here. Like that information showed up and comes through me. I listen to myself in this curriculum sometimes. I go back and read it. Like I said, when I'm lost, I look at my map and I say, where am I? Where are you, Sarah? And if that's where you are, like what would the next step be? Like the whole thing was created to be that guide. And I guess like when I get disgruntled about my business or my growth or my, lack of knowing what the next tools are and the next steps, it's because I'm like, how can all of that be true and me not be on the biggest fucking stage in the world talking about it, helping everyone uncover some of this? Like, I think it's undeniable that we're in this age of reckoning. People are having to like find this kind of information sooner than later. I think.
Well, I was just doing a podcast earlier before this one, and part of our conversation was that everybody had an experience during the pandemic, lockdown, and sort of looking within, and now everything is opening up, but also at the same time things can easily go back to how they were, and people are having to make this, whether they know it or not, are making the choice of like, am I going to go back, or what does continuing on this path look like?
Yeah. Do you remember in the beginning when it was like, how long is this going to be?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, right? Or
Yes.
like, I think for the next month, we should not see people in person. That's what I said. What you just said is absolutely right. There is not enough change, even if the version of shutdown we experienced had been 10x, in other cultures, other countries around the world, it was 10x more intense. A short amount of that, not enough to like impress upon society the big reasons for change. That there is no other choice but then to change. And I still don't think we're there. So we're 2 years in. And the truth is, if you just open the gates tomorrow, majority of people would roll right back. There are certainly, I bet there are things inside of every single body that says, well, this I would never do again. There's that one thing that changed that I would never do. But systemically, societally, we're not there yet. And that both excites me and scares me. I think that's a really beautiful balance of what it means to continue showing up and growing. And you have to be in some state of, all right, that is exciting and scary at the same time. As someone who's ushering a lot of that change in my small way, in my little corner of the world, I feel like really excited by it. And I know that this work is the kind of like tangible stuff that simple humans need, myself included, It's like the idea that you go to the TED Talk that connects all these dots for you and you leave and you're like, oh, wow. But like, where's the curriculum that then says, and there are some, there's all kinds of tools, but I don't know a tool that does this kind of work for me,
Right.
other than this one. I'll leave that there. I mean, that's what it is.
That's excellent.
It's a lot.
That's excellent. Thank you for hanging out today.
Thank you so much for asking. This was fun. I appreciate you kind of holding space for me.